The stage lights were brighter than usual, but that night it wasn't the light that kept millions glued to the screens. There was something in the air, an inexplicable vibration, a pause that felt too long for a mere song change. Amidst the chiming countdown to the new year, the world held its breath. No one expected that in a matter of seconds, a simple act would shake the Asian entertainment scene. And when Liu Yuning suddenly knelt before Zhao Lusi, time truly seemed to stop. The evening was supposed to be like any other gala. The glitter of haute couture gowns, black suits gleaming under the spotlights, the laughter of the well-trained presenters enlivening the atmosphere. The camera moved fluidly, capturing the perfectly smiling faces of the celebrities. The music played majestically, the orchestra setting the year-end mood with a hopeful tone. But beneath all the splendor, there was an undercurrent of unscripted emotion. Zhao Lusi stood gracefully in a white gown that reflected the light like dew on a January morning. Her smile was soft, her eyes sparkling, as if she were savoring every moment of the celebratory evening. On the other side of the stage, Liu Yuning performed with her signature charisma, calm, confident, her deep voice filling the room as she finished the final song before the countdown began. The audience cheered, applause erupted, and no one noticed the subtle change in her expression. Seconds before the music finally stopped, Liu Yuning looked at Zhao Lusi. It was a different look, not that of a fellow artist, not simply a colleague sharing the stage. There was a vulnerability rarely seen in public. The cameras caught the moment, and in an instant, social media was abuzz with speculation, though no one knew what was about to happen. When the song ended and the applause subsided, she stepped closer. At first, it all seemed like part of the script, perhaps a light-hearted exchange, perhaps a New Year's greeting. But her steps slowed, and without warning, without dramatic musical accompaniment, she knelt down. The movement was simple, almost silent, but its impact was like fireworks exploding in the night sky. The crowd fell silent. The host froze in place. Even the cameras seemed to forget to move. Zhao Lusi covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes widening in a shock so real it couldn't have been faked. No script could convey such honesty. Liu Yuning took a small box from the inside pocket of her jacket. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from the courage that had finally found its form. The microphone picked up her voice, softer than usual. She didn't make a long speech, didn't construct flowery sentences. She simply spoke from the deepest place in her heart. She recalled their first meeting, a day when both were still awkward, still cautious in front of the camera. She spoke of the laughter she missed after long days of filming, of the simple text messages that could make the hardest nights lighter. Every word felt personal, not for sensationalism, but for the one person standing before her. The initially transfixed audience began to sob audibly. Several artists in the front row were seen wiping away tears. The moment went beyond entertainment. It became a celebration of the courage to love amidst the constant spotlight. In a world where image often outweighs feeling, it felt like a gentle act of rebellion. Zhao Lusi seemed to struggle to calm her breathing. Time passed slowly, each second like a long chapter in a suspenseful novel. She stared at the man kneeling before her, the man who had chosen the brightest night of the year to reveal his most vulnerable side. His hand slowly reached out, not to take the ring, but to touch her face for a moment, a small gesture that made the audience hold their breath again. Outside the gala hall, millions watched on screens. Comments flooded the live stream, social media servers briefly slowing down from the surge of viewers. Hashtags for their names skyrocketed within minutes. But on that stage, the digital cacophony was muted. There were only two people, and a decision that would change their lives. She finally nodded. A small gesture, but enough to break the tension that hung in the air. Cheers erupted like a storm of light. Confetti fell from the ceiling, and spontaneous music played, without formal cue. Liu Yuning rose, slipped the ring on Zhao Lusi's finger with still trembling hands, and then hugged her tightly. The hug wasn't a stage hug. It wasn't excessive. It wasn't fake. It was short but full of meaning, as if both of them knew that starting that night, everything would change. The camera rotates, capturing the corners of faces wet with tears, both from the audience and fellow artists. New Year's Eve changed from just a celebration to a witness to history. Entertainment industry observers immediately called it one of the most emotional moments in Asian gala history. Not because of its extravagance, not because of its planned sensationalism, but because of an honesty that is rarely seen. In an industry full of strategy and image, that spontaneous act feels so human. Several days later, the proposal clip was replayed on various television stations and digital platforms. Analysis after analysis emerged, dissecting body language, expressions, even pauses in breathing. However, none of them were able to fully capture the vibrations felt by those who witnessed it directly. For fans, that night was proof that love stories can grow amidst busy schedules, public pressure, and endless expectations. For the couple themselves, that night was a promise, not just to be together, but to dare to show love without masks. And maybe that's the reason why the world seemed to stop for a moment. Because amidst the fireworks and the countdown, we're reminded that life's greatest moments often stem from the simplest acts of courage, getting down on one knee, opening our hearts, and waiting honestly for a response. When the clock finally struck the new year, the lights returned to their usual routine. The music resumed, and the host resumed her duties. But no one was truly the same afterward. That night had left a story that would live on, not just as entertainment news, but as a legend of a love that dared to stand in the brightest spotlight. And every time the video was replayed, every time people revisited the moment he got down on one knee and the world fell silent, the same feeling returned, a subtle thrill that reminds us that even on the most magnificent stage, what truly touches the heart is sincerity. The international media immediately turned to the event. Major headlines appeared, hailing it as the most daring proposal on the most symbolic night. Commentators discussed the significance of choosing the turn of the year as the beginning of a new journey, associating it with symbols of hope, renewal, and promises made under a sky full of light. Yet amid all the attention, the two chose to remain modest in their official statement. There was no grand press conference, no overly detailed sharing. They simply expressed their gratitude for the outpouring of support and asked for space to enjoy their happiness in private. This gesture only reinforced the impression that the night was truly born of sincerity, not strategy. Longtime fans reminisced about their respective journeys leading up to that moment. The years of hard work, the succession of projects, the waves of criticism and praise. They saw the proposal not as a fairy tale ending, but as the continuation of two long journeys that finally converged at the same point. As time passed, footage of that night remained a reference when people talked about the courage of love in the entertainment world. It symbolized that behind the glitz and glamour of the industry, there was still room for pure and unexpected acts. That even on a calculated stage, the heart could still take over. And perhaps years from now, when the gala lights have changed generations and new faces have graced the screens, people will still remember the night when the world seemed to stop for a moment. The night a man got down on one knee without a script, a woman responded with a moving nod, and millions of hearts shared the same moment, a moment when love spoke louder than the roar of fireworks.